All right. CS awesome. 1 and 2. Oh, 2 and 6. All right. So here is a Java program. I am going to create an array of strings. So here is an array of strings, people's names. And what I want to do is I want to go through, first I'm going to go through and just print out everybody's name. So the way I need to do that is I need to know how many names there are. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's 5 names. But that might change, right? I might have 10 names. I might have 100 names. So I don't want to actually count them first and then figure out how to go through all of them. I want to have some kind of a loop that automatically goes through all of them. So we know that if I'm going through something with a loop, it's either going to be a while loop or a for loop. But in this case, I can figure out how many items there are. So I want a for loop. A while loop is when you don't know in advance how many things there are going to be. So a for loop always looks like start, stop, and increment. Right? That's how for loops work. For loops always have start, stop, stop. What did I do here wrong? Oh, sorry. So it's going to start I at 0, which is the first position in my array. Then it's going to go So the start is I is 0. It's going to stop when I is no longer less than length, and it's going to step one at a time. So what I want to do is print out the names array at position I, because it's going to start at 0, then I is going to be 1, and then 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then once it gets to 5, this is no longer true. Right? I is no longer less than the length, and so it's going to stop going through the for loop when I is 5, and that's a good thing because there is no position 5. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when it gets to 5, its I is no longer less than the length, so it stops. Oops. Names. Oh, int. Sorry. There we go. I always forget to do that. There we go. All 5 right there. So questions that you are likely to get are things like, find any names that are longer than 5 characters long. Find any names that have a Y in them. right? Like the flight questions that we did. Find any flights that have less than a certain number of passengers, stuff like that. So basically, you have this for loop that goes through all of your items, and you're going to need an if statement. If names I dot blank is greater than 5, then print names I, right? So it's only going to print out if the length of the name is more than 5 characters long. So it only prints out Destiny. So the other way, so generally speaking, and this doesn't really matter for the exam, but just on principle, there's 2 ways to use a for loop for going through an array. The way we've done it is a sort of a traditional for loop, and which is fine. It'll work in every scenario, but we have to remember to keep track of I. That I starts at 0, less than length, blah, blah, blah. If we're going to go through every single element in the array anyway, and we don't have to keep track of which position is which, then it's easier to use what's called an enhanced for loop to do all of the work for us. So instead of creating a new variable I and going through each position, right, if I know that it is an array of strings, then I can just create a temporary string and go through all of the elements automatically. So I don't have to keep track of the length. I'm not going to get any out of bounds array exceptions. I'm not going to accidentally put a less than or equal to instead of a less than. I'm not going to forget to increment I. This is just a lot less error prone. And if I don't care what position things are in the array, this is the one you want to use. So I can just say if current name, right? That's my temporary variable. That length, say this time, oops, less than 5, and I'm going to print out print line. Right. All right, so I have to make one of these less than 5 now. Sophie. Right. So the first one here goes through every one, but you have to keep track of it. So this is useful if you have to remove things, or if you have to switch things, or if you have to know what position in the array that thing is, right? If you have matching arrays, say you have 2 arrays, one is all the people's names, and one is all the people's seat numbers. Then you need to know, and which position in each array, which person is. So you have to keep track using a for loop. If you're just going through one array and checking for something, then an enhanced for loop is easier to use. All right. So are there any questions on that I just went over?